What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston after the Celtics beat the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road on the second night of a back-to-back. No Derrick White, no Nemias Queta, no problem. They pulled away with a 117-115 win, improved to 11-9 on the season, which is exactly a 45-win pace. And so many players just had big-time, massive individual performances in this one, and that's what you hope happens when you have guys important player sideline like you did with Queta and White both missing time tonight. And you come away with a big win over one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they've underperformed a little bit, but nevertheless, a team that has Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter. Like, there are some big time players on this team, and they have their own injury struggles, and they haven't been quite as consistent as they would have hoped. But here they are at home, rested, and the Celtics came in and led by as many as 21 in this game. And so to me, this is up there and like they're one of their best wins of the season. Obviously, there was the home win against the Cavs earlier in the year. They beat the Detroit Pistons last Wednesday. That was probably the win of the year, I would say. They beat the Magic twice. Like they've beaten some good opponents, but this ranks up there just considering they were already shorthanded and they were already on the road, second night of a back-to-back. They were playing with the lead. They got in super late last night. Like, it's really impressive to see that they were able to find a way to win regardless. And so in this episode, I wanted to pull out some of the most encouraging takeaways from this game and kind of what they can utilize moving forward. And I don't think you're going to be surprised. This was a pretty easy episode to record because ultimately there was a lot to like. First thing I'll say is Peyton Pritchard finished with 1 point shy of his career high. He scores 42 points, was on an absolute heater, had 15 points in the fourth quarter when they desperately needed him, including 10 in the final 3 minutes. But from the moment this game started, Pritchard hits 3 deep threes to begin the game, one right off the bat. And you can just kind of tell that he's feeling it. And he picks up 2 early fouls, so he goes to the bench, and Anfernee Simons plays well in his absence and kind of shoulders the scoring load, doesn't really miss a beat. And so you look at it from that standpoint, it was pretty impressive to see Peyton, subbing out, and Anfernee Simons comes in and continues the same momentum. But then Peyton comes back in the second quarter and picks up an early third foul on an offensive foul. And it was kind of a ticky-tack foul. I don't think it should have been one, or at least it's one of those where it's like there's just not a lot of consistency with the way that those calls are officiated. And he kind of looked over Joe Mazzulla like, I'm good. Like, don't, keep me out there. And that was a pivotal moment because obviously Joe could have said, 3 fouls early in the second quarter. We need Peyton. Derrick White's not playing. Like, obviously there's not quite the depth there has been in previous years. But Joe rode with him and he kind of let him stay on the floor. And Peyton puts together one of the best performances of his career. And 42 points for him. He was perfect from the line down the stretch, really big shots. And then he hits the what should have been the dagger, but wasn't, pull-up jumper with 25 seconds to spare. I mean, he saw that Darius Garland was on him, and he kind of went right to his spot. Donovan Mitchell took over down the stretch in this game, which has happened numerous times now with the Celtics facing the Cavs. Like, this just feels like he's kind of asleep throughout the first few quarters. They guarded him well. He never really got going, and then down the stretch, he just was hitting 3 after 3 after 3. And so every single Peyton Pritchard late game basket mattered. And so obviously anytime a guy scores 40, that's great. Like, big, you have the hot hand, all that. But why this matters and why I think fans who have been critical of Peyton's play or just concerned about him as a starting guard in this league, like why they should really focus in on this type of performance is he had a bad game versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm sure he felt like he was one of the most responsible players for why they did not win, despite Jaylen Brown scoring 41 and a lot of good things happening. Nemias Queta, scoring 19 points and 18 rebounds. Like, there were some individual performances that I'm sure you would have liked to see headlining a win, and they did not headline a win. And so Peyton was down on himself. I covered Peyton for the last few years. I've observed him on the road after losses. He is super hard on himself, and he kind of takes ownership of that. He had back-to-back 5-point games earlier this month against the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. And he talked about how he was so disappointed with his play, and he got a haircut and he went home and was like, I got to figure this out. And then he goes on a tear where he plays really well for like 6 games. And so that's just been kind of his MO. And I know, the highs and lows of a player are always going to be scrutinized. And to be a great player, you have to be uber consistent. Like, what makes SGA the MVP is that he does it every single night. but Payton has responded really well to a bad performance. And this was a perfect encapsulation of that. Literally on Saturday night, he's bummed in Minnesota. He lands in Cleveland late Sunday night or late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And then he puts together this performance on the second night of a back-to-back without his backcourt mate, without their top rim protector. Like, this team was shorthanded, right? They had some adversity to overcome to win this one. And he was the primary reason why they were able to get this win. And to me, that shows you something about his mindset, that he responds to a tough stretch by getting better. And I think Derrick White's similar in that fashion. That's what makes players great. And that's why I have a lot of hope for what he's going to be able to accomplish both this season and his career. And if you look at his numbers now, like, he is no longer having an inefficient shooting season. He's about 35% from three on the year, but that number is really trending upwards when he started like 18% over the first like 8 games of the year. So he's headed in the right direction. It doesn't mean he's not going to sometimes have an off night like he did last night in Minnesota, but he's doing enough to propel this team to where they need to be. And I think it's the consistency piece is just comes with practice and comes with being a starting guard in this league and the tension that comes with that. And then also like just a different role, right? He's talked about how in the past he's come in and just hunted his own shot right away, been the spark off the bench. That's not the case anymore, right? He's coming in alongside Jaylen Brown, alongside Derrick White. So it's just a different role. So I think he's figured it out really well, but this was a perfect encapsulation of both his ability to create his own shot, his ability to spot up shoot, his ability to handle the ball. Like, there was a moment there where they had to cross half court late in that fourth quarter. Joe Mazzulla called a timeout. They were struggling to do so, and Jordan Walsh inbounded the ball to Payton. Payton had 3 seconds to cross half court. There was like 3 defenders on him, and he just masterfully dribbled through the traffic, wove through the traffic, found Sam Hauser, and kept the possession alive. And that was, it's such a wonderful thing that you should not take for granted when one of your star players, which he is one of the Celtics team stars, is a prolific ball handler and a prolific free throw maker. So down the stretch, rather than them having to give the ball to Jaylen Brown, who is not the best ball handler on the team, not the best free throw shooter on the team, they had Payton to kind of fulfill that role. And obviously it helps that he was feeling himself in this game. Speaking of Jaylen had a fascinating game because I thought his mindset coming out of the gate was really strong, and then he kind of struggled later in that first quarter, racks up a bunch of turnovers. He finished with 6 turnovers in this one. But big picture, Jaylen Brown showed tonight that he is a basketball player that impacts winning in all ways, even when he's not scoring the ball particularly well, when his shot's off. And if you've been following Jaylen Brown's career, it's no surprise. He's been doing this for a long time, but I think sometimes he gets described as somebody who's just like a bucket getter, or maybe like a good on-ball defender, but a bucket getter who benefits from playing with elite players. Like, that was the knock on him entering the season, is that he's always played with Jason Tatum. He's always played with a bunch of all-stars. And so what is it going to look like when it's just him? And I would like to say that through 20 games, he's really kind of shut up a lot of the haters with his ability to score the ball. He's averaging like 29 points per game this season. He's the most efficient season of his career. He's one of the best mid-range shooters in the NBA. But then also the other things that he's done. And in this game, he records his first triple-double of the season, the 4th of his career. He finishes with 12 assists and 11 rebounds. And last night, in Saturday night in Minnesota, he has 5 steals. Like, he's just showing you that he can do a lot of everything. And the rebounding, to me, is something that I've really kept my eye on, because the first couple of games of the season, the Celtics team was really poor on the glass. And a lot of that was Neemias Queta who lets him go. A lot of it was just team-wide. But Jaylen was one of the guys that when I would go back and rewatch opposing teams' offensive rebounds, he was on the wrong end of a lot of plays where guys were kind of jumping over his back, or he was missing a box out. He was just a second slow. Obviously, he had the one we all remember where the Philadelphia 76ers have a game winner. I think it was Kelly Oubre over Jaylen, who wasn't boxing out. So it's like, hasn't been perfect, but he's really trending upwards in the rebounding department. He's really kind of relished those matchups in the Pistons game. He's going up against Jalen Duren, like just putting a body on him, doing everything he can to possibly get the rebound, or at least make sure that his guy doesn't. And so an 11 rebound game, like, it's something that I think he's trending toward more and more. And there were a couple of possessions tonight where it wasn't even him that got the rebound, but he had a great block out and the ball went out of bounds, or somebody else that, got the rebound. And so to me, like, early on, I could just tell this was not Jaylen's night. And he finishes 3 of 13 from the field, and he missed some easy shots. He missed some mid-range shots that have been going in for him this season. But he gets to the line at the best clip that he has all season long. He attempts 16 free throws. And that's the way a superstar kind of continues to impact the game even when they're not feeling it. He found ways to get to the line. He finally got some calls because I do think he's had a pretty poor whistle so far this season with guys just grabbing him and him for some one reason or another just not getting the same calls that some other stars in this league have been getting. But he gets to the line, he distributes the ball, he rebounds, he defends, and he kind of does everything else that he can, even when it's not necessarily his night. And again, he's played in all 20 games for the Celtics. He was on the injury report with low back spasm entering Saturday, and then Kada and Derrick White are both ruled out on the second night, and Jaylen's not even on the injury report. And I have a feeling Jaylen's going to try to play literally every game this season. He's made that pretty clear that that's what he wants to do. And so far, every back-to-back he's played on the second night as well. So and there's been 3 back-to-backs that have been road back-to-backs where you're literally traveling after the first night, getting in really late, and then you immediately have a game the next day. So those are not good for recovery. And nevertheless, Jaylen has played through those and played well. So it's just he continues to get better as a player. He's 29 years old now. I think you can sense that his game, maybe he's not quite as athletic or he doesn't have quite the bounce that he had a couple years ago. And I'm not sure if that's still just lingering effects of some injuries or if that's just the state of being a 29-year-old that's had knee surgery. We'll see how the year shakes out. But regardless, I think he's the best player that he's ever been. And this is somebody that has been a second-team All-NBA player. This is somebody that has been a Finals MVP. And here he is now seemingly adding more to his game. The game seemingly has kind of slowed down for him. And I do think he's become a better playmaker. And obviously he has the ball in his hands a lot more. So that's going to help the assist numbers too. But there were some moments down the stretch of this game where Payton had the ball and Jaylen kind of empowered him, like, go hunt that mismatch. Go hunt your mismatch. And that's the number 2 scorer on the Celtics right now. Jaylen's the number 1 guy. And so they have a little bit of this dynamic of like empowering one another and drawing to and kicking it out to the other. And it's been more this season of Payton finding Jaylen, but tonight it was a lot of Jaylen finding Payton and a lot of down the stretch him drawing to and immediately kicking out to a guy that he had all the faith in the world was going to deliver. So it was fun to watch. It was fun to see kind of their two-man game evolve and to see that even on a Celtics team that pretty much had 2 legit scoring options for a lot of this game. I mean, not that the other guys aren't, but this is not an all-star starting 5 anymore, right? They were still able to create advantages, which has been the whole MO of Joe Mazzulla's offense, creating 2-on-1s. So that was pretty cool to watch. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It is the holiday season, the best time of year for sports, bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It is all happening at once. And while you and I are here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, what games to watch, there is one place where it feels good to be right: Prize Picks. There have been some incredible individual performances so far this season. You can watch Steph Curry, who has been incredible. You can watch Patrick Mahomes, Austin Reeves. There have been players all over the country across all different sports. You can select them for your Prize Picks, whether that is field goals made, free throws made, fantasy score, turnovers even. I know a couple players who really stack up their free throws. Tonight, that was Jaylen Brown. That was not the case in the previous game. Is your fantasy season already over? My team is cooked, but with Prize Picks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft. Prize Picks lets you play fantasy football every week. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projection every week. No draft required. On Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the bigger payouts, go for the Power Play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So I spoke about Jaylen Brown. I spoke about Payton Pritchard, who were obviously the 2 big performers in this one, but then also just 2 big performers for the Celtics team all season long. But I would be remiss to not really plug Jordan Walsh's performance. Jordan Walsh is just an amazing story because earlier this month, he looked like he was borderline out of the league. He was a DNP almost every night. And again, this is a guy who's in his 3rd season. This is the year that you want to show you can be on the floor as an NBA player. Rookie season, he was 19. I think the expectation was for him to be in Maine on a loaded championship contender. 2nd season, he's in Boston. He doesn't quite get as many opportunities as maybe he would have hoped, but overall, stacked team. I don't think it was a shock. But then the 3rd season comes along and it's like, okay, there's a lot of new young guys and Jordan's kind of seemingly lost in the shuffle. And here he is now. He has started almost every game. He's been 7 games in a row, I believe. And Defensively, I think right away he showed that he is a lockdown defender that can guard anybody from Tyrese Maxey to Jaren Jackson to Paolo Banchero. And the big question is, what else can he do, right, outside of defending? Because at the end of the day, it's hard to just be a defensive specialist in today's NBA. And he's been shooting the ball well, and I like his shot. I like his release. He looks confident. But in Minnesota, one of the many guys that probably didn't do enough is Jordan, who was scoreless, right? And it's not a big deal. Like he's not being pitched as a guy who's going to score the ball a whole lot. But at the same time, you'd like to see him score a little bit, right? And Jordan was scoreless. In this game, he sets a new career high, 14 points. And I like the way he got his baskets, a lot of baskets around the rim. He had an offensive rebound put back in the fourth quarter, which was an and one. He had another offensive rebound on the next possession, which led to a Celtics basket. So he has these big time like momentum plays. And crashing the glass is awesome. He had 6 offensive rebounds in this game. Like that's what this team is going to need because obviously they lack some size and they are going to get out rebounded. And so Joe's talked about it quite a bit, but they have to figure out how to mitigate the defensive rebounding woes that are inevitable. And that includes crashing the offensive glass. That includes not turning the ball over. And Jordan was pivotal in the offensive glass crashing in this one. 14 points marked a new career high for him. And I think in general, as you continue to look at the evolution of this guy's game, this is a 21-year-old who still has very limited NBA experience, but now you're seeing the physical tools and you're seeing this somebody that can space the floor. And I think he's going to be a reliable three-point shooter in his career. I mean, obviously that's a big question mark still, but in small samples, he shot the ball well this season. And if he's as prolific a rebounder as he looks to be, you have yourself like a relatively complete player for a role player, right? Like this is not going to, I would be surprised if Jordan becomes like a number 1 or a number 2 option, but can he be a starter in the NBA? Can he be somebody that gives you 15, 20 minutes a night, high quality minutes? I really do think so. And I don't know that I would have known that a month ago. I don't know that Joe Mazzulla would have known that. I don't know that Jordan himself would have known that, but Jaylen Brown empowered him and talked about how, they sit together on the plane and he said, I think that could be you, this guy that's locking down defenders and all that. And Jordan gets the opportunity. He completely capitalizes on it when he does and finds his way into the starting lineup and finds his way into more consistent minutes. He plays 38 minutes in this game and they almost couldn't afford to take him off the floor because he was doing so many good things for them. And so that's what you want to see from this season. A win is awesome. Jaylen and Payton playing great is awesome. But the big question mark around this team entering the season was between these guys that you have, Josh Minot, Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, Ugo Gonzalez, like are any of these guys NBA players? And increasingly it feels like they're all NBA players. And that's why Joe's having a hard time figuring out who should be on the floor. And it's been hard to pick one guy and give them all the opportunities. And if someone doesn't have it, he just goes with a different player, right? But truthfully, I've been really excited by Jordan's November. This has been a pivotal month in his professional basketball career. And tonight was one of the best games that he's had. Both a lot of good stuff on the defensive end, but then also the fact that he was able to give you some scoring and crashing the glass and all of that. And on that note, I'll mention, he starts this game alongside Xavier Tillman. Xavier Tillman is somebody who was a DNP, I believe, in 9 of the previous 10 games. He played for 5 minutes total in the past 10 games. And I have a feature coming out about him, but his teammates have just been praising his veteran leadership. He's been one of the most consistent, kind of positive voices in the locker room. Joe Mazzulla has described him as a real vet for this team, even though he's only 26. Jaylen Brown has said, he's really one of the leaders. And I've talked to his former teammates in Memphis. Like everybody loves this guy. And it's hard when you're on the bench for a month. Everybody wants to play. And obviously X sees an opportunity, right, against Detroit. Neemias Queta sidelined with an ankle injury. And Joe starts Luka Garza and brings a two-way center, Amari Williams, to play 15 minutes. And a lot of guys could take that personally and feel upset about that. Like, I'm not getting a chance here. But that's just not the way Xavier Tillman rolls. And he finally gets a big-time opportunity in this one. He starts the game, which I did not expect, plays 30 minutes, and does a lot of good things. 9 points, 3 steals. He had a great loose ball that he dove on the floor and secured. 6 rebounds, 3 of them were offensive. But it's just when you're down guys, like it creates opportunities for other players. And it can be a really good thing because obviously it sucks to be Xavier Tillman to never really have the chance to play. But now he comes in and plays 30 minutes. And even if he's back to a DNP next game, like it energizes you to have been a part of this win physically on the floor. And so I think Joe's done a good job of keeping guys engaged, but it's also a credit to those players, the ones that are able to stay solid and to not they kind of get frustrated or resentful or all that when they're sidelined for extended periods of time, especially when it's like, it's one thing last year with, Porzingis and Al Horford and Luke Cornett and all those guys ahead of him in the rotation. But this year it's like, there's minutes there and he hasn't gotten them. And so tonight he gets an opportunity. He did a lot of good things defensively in particular. Struggled from three with 1 of 5. I think he airballed maybe 2 of those, but did enough to help be a big part of the win. And he plays 30 minutes in this one, which just because he started does not mean that he was for sure going to play 30 minutes. There have been games where he's played, a guy has started and Joe's never gone back to them. So there's no security there, but really liked what we saw from him tonight and liked that he was ready to go because you just don't know if that's always going to be the case. And the last thing that I'll mention is Anfernee Simons, who has 18 points in this one, but really when he was on the floor, there was a whole stretch there where Jaylen and Payton were both sitting, and obviously Derrick's not playing in this game. And so Anfernee was like the go-to scoring option, and that's really what I want to see from him as much as possible. Like if he can be that guy on the floor who is really has the ball in his hand, they're calling his number, they're running plays for him, running sets for him. Like that's what he is, right? He's a prolific scorer, and I think that he has been for the Celtics team at many times this season. It's just sometimes either he's not playing a lot or he's playing alongside other offensive talents, and he's just not really getting many shots off. So I like how they used him. I liked how he responded, and he was an underrated component to this win because ultimately Payton goes to the bench in the beginning of the first quarter or midway through the first quarter. They didn't miss a beat because Anfernee comes in and just picks up right where he left off. So overall, this is a good win against a good Eastern Conference team. I think this team is going to end up being a top 5 seed, top 4 seed. I mean, people going into the year, there was very high expectations. And so the fact that they're kind of neck and neck right now, obviously Boston's won both games against Cleveland this season, which is pretty remarkable. It's just big time. And again, this was a tough stretch. Orlando, Detroit, Minnesota, Cleveland, 4 playoff teams. They win 3 of 4 of those, and more difficult games are coming. New York's coming into town on Tuesday. The Lakers are coming into town on Friday, and then the Celtics go to Toronto on Sunday. So 3 of their next 4 games are against elite playoff opponents. I mean, the Raptors have not been a playoff team historically, but they seem to be on pace to do that. Lakers and Knicks have been 2 of the hottest teams in the league. So we'll see how it all pans out, but definitely a good stretch here for a Celtics team that has been dealing with some injuries too. Cade obviously spraining his ankle a week ago did not fare very well for how they were going to handle things, but they managed to have guys step up, guys do different things. I'll give a really quick shout out to Hugo Gonzalez, who played some fourth quarter minutes, secured a steal and then hit a 3 on the next possession, which was a really important sequence. And this was a 2-point win, so every basket definitely counted. With that, that's all for now. I enjoyed covering these 2 games from home. These are my first 2 games that I've not been at in person. I'll be back at the Garden on Tuesday. Celtics have practice, or Celtics have shoot around on Tuesday as well, and then I'll be in DC. So back with the team this week. But it was a nice holiday break and nice to watch the game on television. Honestly, it's an enjoyable experience to see the broadcast and all of that. So that's all for now. Let me know what you took away from this win. Let me know if there were some things that I missed that stood out to you. How do you feel about this team through 20 games? We're almost a quarter into the season. They're right on track for 45 wins, which was my projection. So I feel pretty good about that. But let me know as always, and thank you for watching.